Well, I'm not sick anymore, but a lot of you already know that right after Christmas, I got a really bad flu. I was bedridden for 5 straight days, and all I could do was contemplate my life's choices and play Nintendo Switch. This thing was a heaven sent. I gotta tell you, if I didn't already love this thing, I adore it now. I'm about ready to get down on one knee and put a ring on its Joy-Con finger. But I used that 5 days as a chance to catch up on a lot of games that I've had for a while, but I hadn't had a chance to play yet. I love them. I love them all so much. In fact, some of them I thought I was gonna hate, and that's why I was putting it off. And then as soon as I started it, I was like, damn, I should have played this a long time ago. In fact, one of the games I'm talking about today, as soon as I started playing it, I was so hooked, I finished it in one sitting. Which has me all amped up, because now I have all these games I want to talk about. However, I don't want to make a bunch of separate videos for games that have been out for a while, so how about I just squish them all into this video and we talk about some really fun Switch games that I've been playing lately. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds pretty good to me, so let's get started. Initially, I didn't pick up Resident Evil Revelations. It's a double pack that has the first game and the second game. I'd played the first one already. I played it a couple times back on 360. I hadn't played the sequel yet, but when I found out the sequel was a download code only, I was kind of like, well, I don't really wanna. But my friend Sean from the channel RGT85, great channel I do recommend checking out, persuaded me to buy it because it has co-op. And the co-op raid mode is a lot like the Mercenaries mode that was in Resident Evil 5, and I loved Mercenaries mode. Resident Evil 5 actually was a really fun Resident Evil game that wasn't really a Resident Evil game that I have finished in co-op 4 or 5 times with friends. And the Mercenaries mode, I 100%ed with a friend. It took hours and hours and days, but we had so much fun. So I thought, yeah, sure, okay, I'll go out, buy this game so we can play it co-op. Now, we've played the raid mode co-op. We actually just got done playing it for 3 hours on a live stream, and it was fun. It was that Mercenaries mode. It is raid mode with a bunch of extra things in there. You upgrade, level up, blah, blah, blah. And I really enjoyed it. I have to say right now, as far as I'm aware, this is the best online co-op game on the Switch. There's a bunch of multiplayer games, I've talked about them before, you know, your Dooms, your Rocket Leagues, your Splatoons, but as far as buddying up with a friend and blasting through a bunch of levels and kicking ass, kicking zombie ass, this is the best co-op game I've played on the Switch so far. Until Payday 2 comes out, this is probably going to be my go-to co-op game. But I also went ahead and dived into the story because, as I said, why not? I hadn't played Resident Evil Revelations 2 yet, and it's really fun. It's a really good game. The story is a little lackluster, but the actual gameplay, if you played Resident Evil 5, or I'm sure if you've played Resident Evil Revelations, it's like Resident Evil 5 style of gameplay, but it's a lot faster and a lot smoother, and I really like it. But the main thing that totally blew me away is this game looks amazing on the Switch. It looks so much better than I expected. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's definitely one of the best looking Switch games. It's so clear, so crisp, you can see way out there into the distance without much detail loss. I was just really impressed by it. Even playing online and co-op, there was really no difference. Every level, every place that I went and explored looked really nice, clean and crisp. The character models, the edges are so clean, there's no rigidness to it at all. And it's the same playing it whether you're playing it on the TV or you're playing it in handheld mode. It looks so good. So if you want a really fun co-op game or just a really fun game, or if you want something that looks great on the Switch, this one really impressed me. It comes with the first game physical and then a download code for the second. The second one is what you're gonna really wanna dive into here. Next up, let's go ahead and dive into an eShop game on my Switch, and that's Rive. I enjoyed the heck out of Rive. This is the game that I mentioned before where I didn't think I was gonna like it and I put off actually playing it. But then as soon as I started, blown away, way better than I expected. Instantly one of my favorite eShop games, definitely top 5. I'm not kidding, it is so fun. The things I really like about this game, firstly, the voice acting. There's 2 main characters in the game, I would say. The guy that voices the main character that narrates you along your journey, he does a really great job. I loved everything he said, and I was always waiting for the next bit of dialogue from him. There's a lot of humor in the game, which definitely comes from him, but also comes from the other kind of main character in the game, which is the enemy in the game, the little robot floating security camera, which they have a lot of banter between those 2 characters, and it's always priceless. And one of my favorite things about it is whenever that robot character comes down, if you don't want to hear what he has to say, you can just shoot him and blow him up. And it's funny because he hates it and he gets ever so more annoyed by it as the game progresses if you don't listen to what he has to say. But the dialogue is so engaging that I'm always torn between, do I blow you up for the comedic effect, or do I listen to what you say and listen to the banter between these two characters? So the banter and humor and the voice acting aside, all of which are really great, the gameplay drew me in instantly. It's a shoot 'em up style game. There's a few levels where you're in space. It starts as an asteroid type game, and then as you go into the ship, you hit gravity. There's parts where you go underwater, and each three of these parts play very differently, and you bounce between the three. You spend most of your time with gravity, but the shooting mechanic, the twin stick style shooting mechanic, is really fun, especially when you start powering up and getting things like the shotguns and missiles. When you start being able to take over enemies, hacking them and having them on your side, you can have them heal you, you can have them shoot for you. There's even a level where you go into space and it pays an homage to old school shooters when you could only shoot in one direction, and it forces you to only be able to shoot in one direction. There's a lot of references to other games in this game. They just, I don't know, it just enjoyed it the entire way through. It didn't go on long enough. It was only about 2 or 3 hours, I think, at the end of the day. But I would have loved for 5 or 6. I would have loved if it kept going. This was a really fantastic game, and I just totally didn't expect it, and I highly recommend trying it. Dragonball Xenoverse 2 is a game that a lot of people have wanted me to cover, but I haven't really known what to say about it. I've been playing it a lot more lately, and I really enjoy it. If you haven't played a Xenoverse game before, imagine kind of the Raging Blast games, and if you never played those before, I'm gonna have to try and explain it for you. But if you have played the Raging Blast games, imagine that style of gameplay, kind of tweaked, kind of modified, but essentially the same style, with an overall hub world that you can explore in between missions. The story in these games are pretty cool. You play a part in the Time Patrol, which is operated by Trunks and Grandmaster Kai, or whatever his name is, and a few other people. And essentially there are characters that are going back through time and messing up the timeline, and you have to go back and help fix the timeline. So you see a lot of these classic scenarios, like one of the early ones being Piccolo and Goku versing Raditz, and you have that scene where Goku holds Raditz and then the special beam cannon goes through both of them. Well, imagine if that special beam cannon missed, and now you have to go in there and you have to fix that scenario. You have to help them beat Raditz. So you can ultimately keep putting the pieces of the puzzle the way it happened back together. I'm not a huge fan of the hub world mechanic. A lot of people love it. I don't hate it. I haven't dived into it enough. There's a ton of different things to explore, characters to meet, shops to go to, things to buy, upgrades to find. The thing I really love about the game is if you've never played a Xenoverse or Raging Blast, or you just haven't played a Dragon Ball game in a while, it really does do a pretty great job at making you feel like you're part of the anime, making it feel like you are in a Dragon Ball battle. You have so much control over the battle, so many of the typical things that you'll see in Dragon Ball battles you can pull off and you can do in the game. There's so much choice and freedom behind it, which is what I really love. I haven't played enough of it to give a full opinion on it. Really enjoyed everything I've played. It's an exciting game to keep picking up and playing. That for me is only slowed down by the hub world, but it's more because there's just so much text and talking that I just tend to skip through all of it and then end up being confused, which is totally on me. But as soon as I figure out what I'm doing, I have a great time. Another eShop game I've been really enjoying, Phantom Breaker Overdrive. Now, I actually picked this game up initially to play it with Sean because we thought we could do online beat 'em up co-op. Turns out you can't do the co-op online, it's local only, so I started playing on my own. I thought it looked like a really great beat 'em up. From the outside looking in, it reminded me of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which was and is probably my favorite beat 'em up of all time. I don't talk about beat 'em ups too often. That Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, for me anyway, just blew everything out of the water. It was a combination of all great beat 'em ups into one with its own unique twist with the Scott Pilgrim storyline, and I love that movie, so everything just came together perfectly. The artistic style of this game reminded me of it, so I wanted to pick it up in hopes it was even close. It's not. Nothing is ever going to compare to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Phantom Breaker is still really fun. There's quite a few different characters to choose from, and you can mix up their costumes. They each have like 8 different color schemes. There's a lot of crazy combos you can pull off and special moves. You unlock more and level up as you go. The combat feels really great. A lot of the enemies just feel like punching bags, which would be my only complaint, but there are quite a few enemies that mix it up and throw things at you. It can get pretty annoying. But where the game really spikes the difficulty is when you get to boss battles. I have struggled with some boss battles. It feels really great when you beat it. You get your ass kicked time and time again. At least I do. Maybe I'm not that good at it, but I got my ass kicked time and time again. The battles felt really cool. The way we were flipping around each other, pulling off combo moves, trying to one-up each other, trying to block. And eventually when you do finally manage to beat the boss battle, it feels great. The game visually looks really great. I liked the visual style before I even played it. I like the way the background looks. I like the fact that there's two lines that you can battle on. You can go into the stage or you can come further forward and you can bounce between the two to strategize depending on what enemies you have to face. I was hoping for a little bit more depth to it, like the Scott Pilgrim game, but if you're looking for a great beat 'em up, this is definitely one. Now, I'm sure almost none of you have been in suspense this entire video waiting to find out what game was it that you played in one straight day. Settle down, I'm about to tell you. That game is Batman, the Telltale series, and again, if you're a fan of my show or you've been following me for a while, this probably won't strike you as any surprise. If there's any single company that I could be accused of working for other than Nintendo, it's probably Telltale by the sheer amount that I boast about their video games. I love Monkey Island, grew up on it. The first Walking Dead Telltale game is one of my favorite games of all time, and I just finished the third one recently, and that was amazing. Wolf Among Us is an amazing game, and I'm so glad we finally have a sequel announced. Well, I was taking my sweet time to get around to Batman. My sickness was apparently the time for me to Batman shine, and I loved it so much. The reason why I kind of put off playing it was because I love the Batman Arkham series, and this game came out, and as much as I love Telltale, I had my Batman universe, I had my Batman games, and I couldn't see anything, even Telltale rivaling it. Ended up being very naive for me to think that because it's Telltale, they're gonna tell an amazing story, and that's what it's all about. I shouldn't have been even slightly comparing it, because as soon as I started this, I was instantly hooked. It's Batman. Whether it's the movies, the video games, the old school movies, the TV show Gotham, almost anything that Batman has been great. Something like the Walking Dead games, there's a lot of walking around, exploring, talking to characters, whereas this doesn't do as much of that. There's quite a few detective crime scenes where you need to piece together what happened, which actually is always really cool the way they do it, because you'll walk into a crime scene and you'll have no idea. You'll see dead bodies, blood, evidence of some kind, but you'll walk in with no clue what happened. And they do a really good job at explaining what certain things are, having you link up what certain things might connect, the dots that might connect, and then as you're doing it, you start to realize what the crime scene, what has actually happened. And then at the end, when you've put it all together, it will give you a full display, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That's obviously what happened here, even though just an hour beforehand when you walked into the room, you couldn't even take a guess. And I like that a lot. I like what they did on the detective side of things and focusing on the detective side of Batman. But around that, there's kick-ass action. There's a lot of quick time events, obviously, but this is a game where quick time events are welcome and they're so fun to play. You don't want to screw them up. During the quick time events, you can actually build up a little meter. And if you build it up enough and you don't screw up enough, you can actually end on a Batman finisher, which adds even more pressure to trying to get everything right. And then, as you can expect, story, twist, turns, decisions you have to make that you don't want to make, decisions you make and then you think, what have I done? Decisions that you think, that was the right decision, there's no way that can go wrong, and then something happens 10 minutes later and you're like, oh, I forgot about that, I screwed everything up. It's so great, and I loved the way my story panned out, and I actually want to go back through and try some other options, and that is a mark of a great game. Well, there are some more games I could talk about, a few more eShop games, a few games I bought physically recently, but I sort of have plans for those games. I don't want to give away too many of my good eShop games because I have the eShop videos that I like to make, and maybe I'll save some of the physical games for another video like this if you guys enjoyed this video. This isn't really something I've exactly done before, just talking about a few unrelated games that I'm really enjoying right now, but if you like this format, if you liked the video, if you had a good time, I mean, hey, if you're still watching, remember to hit that like button. Leave a comment down below about what games you're playing right now and you're really enjoying, and subscribe because it makes us best friends, and I appreciate it. I'm gonna stop pointing at you now because it was rude. Oh, last chance, guys. The shirt, the Zelda shirt on Bonfire has like 2 days left, so if you want one, I think it's a really cool shirt. I'm still waiting to get mine. Yes, I got one of my own shirts because that's how much I love it. So there's a link down below if you want to check that out and maybe possibly buy one. It really helps the show out. So does supporting Patreon. So does touching that little bell. I'm gonna go. I have nothing else to say. I love you guys. Seriously, I'm enjoying this year so far. The next one's gonna be about VR games, and I'm really excited to make that. But I'm out.